It's an exciting Monday afternoon. We are here once again to take a look at issues as it affects you and I in the continent. The program Africa Discourse. I am Wilson Marshall. Today is all about the socio-economic situation in Zimbabwe under the leadership of Emmerson Mnagangwa. Yes, he made so many promises to Zimbabweans, telling them that he's going to bring drastic change, drastic reform that will be of benefit to Zimbabweans. But right now, are they smiling? More than 300% increase in tariff when you talk about electricity. Yes, power, more than 300%. I want to take a look at the value of the Zimbabwean dollars. Is nothing to write home about. And they are now into hyperinflation. And that is bringing about so many questions. Was Robert Mugabe the problem of Zimbabwe then? Or is the rotten court now left behind by Robert Mugabe, late Robert Mugabe, is what Emmerson is suffering from, or is trying to clean up, or is making it worse? All these and more what we'll look at in the discussion that will come up immediately after I introduce my guest. Let me to welcome a lecturer at the University of Benin, and of course a man of God, a political analyst, Frank Amigo. Welcome to the show, sir.
Yes, nice being with you this afternoon. Thank you so much.
So here we are today. Zimbabweans, it's like they are worse off, so to speak, because of numerous challenges, numerous complaints, and of course the hyperinflation is like biting so hard into the fabric of that country, Zimbabwe. Is Emmerson doing a wonderful job?
Wonderful in quotes. The challenge we have is a general African leadership problem. The situation in Zimbabwe is so pathetic that the other African leaders should take that as an example and learn from it. The challenge Zimbabwe is having at the moment didn't start today. And it didn't start in the era of President Emmerson. Just that African leaders usually do not mean what they say. And by that, they also say what they mean. He has come up with laudable ideas how to revamp the economy, but he never meant them. Otherwise, various street protests all around Zimbabwe wouldn't have been there. You don't promise good governance and increase tariff. Prices of goods and services have skyrocketed. So now, where is the promise of good governance? You boost international cooperation and all that. Nothing seems to be happening. So the present president of Zimbabwe has been in government all these years. So you cannot claim ignorance of the decadence in socio-economic activities in Zimbabwe. It's been part of it, even pre-independence. They got their independence in 1980. They started fighting since 1960. This same president has been part of it. Since 2014, he was the first vice president under Robert Mugabe. So he knows the nitty-gritty, he knows the running of the Zimbabwe country. So he cannot claim ignorance. It's part and parcel of the decadence there.
Oh, all right. Now, where is he getting it wrong? Is it following the old format of governance, or he's trying to change it? Because right now he talked about reaching out to the U.S. to revamp the economy. How do you think that is going?
Revamping the economy will have to be for him to make up his mind, to clear his conscience from previous bad governments or years of Robert Mugabe, spanning about 37 years now. So the atrocities committed by his own party, ZANU-PF or so they call it,
ZANU-PF.
It was part and parcel of the atrocities. And he was also nicknamed the crocodile, stemming from the fact that he's so cunning. There is none in his country as a crocodile. You know what about crocodile tears? Don't really mean it. So he's not, as far as I'm concerned, he's not a straightforward person.
Not a straightforward person.
Not straightforward at all.
All right, we'll come back to you after this break. When we return, we're going to throw more light into what is happening in Zimbabwe. Is Emmerson Mnagangwa living up to expectations? Before he came into the scene, he promised drastic change. In the course of the discussion, you get to see the clips of when he entered Zimbabwe as the #1 man and making so much promises. Now, where are the promises? Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Thank you so much for staying tuned. If you just joined us, this is Africa Discourse, and it may also be of use to you that maybe you didn't come on time to really join us at the beginning of this program. Our YouTube channel is there, social media. All you need to log on to www.youtube.com/ITV Radio NG. Click on it. Current affairs program news, they are all there for you to go through them again, listen to them, get the full details of the discussion. You can follow us on live stream also on www.itvradionnigeria.com/live to see what you're doing. In your phone, or maybe you have internet connectivity, you just see it there. On GoTV, we are on channel 107. Star Times channel 130. You see, we're global, so you can come do business with us. On today's edition of Africa Discourse, we are taking a look at the leadership qualities of Emmerson Mnagangwa. Yes, Zimbabwe's socio-economic situation. What is going on right now in Zimbabwe? Was that what Emmerson promised them? Just join us right now in the studio is a political analyst, a very vibrant youth. Join me, welcome Emmerson Mnagangwa. Welcome to the show.
My pleasure, Wilson. Good afternoon.
And
Good
you came
afternoon,
late.
Here. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Some little emergencies.
All right.
Thank
All
you.
right. All right. Now we're with you. Now he talked about Emmerson Mnagangwa giving to his name. Called him the crocodile. That is his nickname, his alias. Crocodile tears and all that. From what he said also, he said Emmerson Mnagangwa is not true to his promise to his people because of what is happening in Zimbabwe. After all, he was part of the former administration of Robert Mugabe. So he doesn't have any excuse to give that, doesn't know the workings of the government of Zimbabwe. Let me come to you, Godset. What do you feel about this?
Anyway, let me begin by saying that there are two sides to the coin. There is a school of thought that seems to suggest if you try to research about what is currently going on in Zimbabwe, you discover that there is another school of thought that seems to say, 2 years is not enough for over 3 decades of destruction, so to speak, you know. But if you look at it carefully, like what I've always said, it's only in Africa that change is mystical. When you talk about change, initiating change, people want to make it seem as if it's a lifetime business. You know, nobody is expecting Emmerson to do an instant miracle. But like you said, for someone that has been around the corridor of power, for someone that is not a novice in the game, for someone that have also witnessed the plight of the people under Mugabe, that saw the take over from the government in 2017 from Mugabe, that saw the mass protest, what the people said they needed, one would have expected more. One would have expected more. So if I want to take up Emmerson, I would like to say you have to take him up as an elder statesman that should understand the common reality of the ordinary Zimbabweans. Because I always want to tell politicians and African leaders, why you want to put your indices together and try to influence all kind of institutions or parastatals to make the world seem you are doing relatively well. We must realize that there's difference between paper presentation and the reality on the street. You see, and that is exactly what this government is currently confronted with. The reality on the street shows that things have deteriorated. It has even worsened than when Mugabe was in power. In fact, currently, the inflation rate for Zimbabwe is about 175%, which is alarming. The worst they had was in 2008, where they had the highest inflation rate in the world. And prediction shows that they are very close to that with 175%. Now there is more hunger on the street, more people are dying of starvation. Why, another irony to this, why the few political class are becoming richer than the system. Like my colleague have said, that is the norm in the African narrative. You know, why things get worse, our leaders have a way of creating their excuse to make it appeal to the world, but they are getting better. And sometimes, in some cases, the social activists, even lifestyle, are getting more better. And what we claim to be defending and protecting, the situation gets worse. Today, power supply is still an issue in Zimbabwe. And you can't talk about one of the booster to economy is the power sector. You can never see a good economic upliftment in any nation where the power is suffering. Zimbabwe is still suffering from power outage massively, you know, in a very high rate. And currently we are also seeing weak policies. We are seeing policies that are rigid, policies that are not being reviewed from time to time. And that's one thing about African leadership. We hold on to something and we do not learn to compromise sometimes. There's what we call intelligent compromise. When a policy is not working, you need to learn to turn around, you know, because there were a lot of promises and a lot of expectation when Emmerson came to power. There was a lot of promises on democratic reforms, policies reforms. There was a lot of promises on power supply, opening Zimbabwe to international market, which of course, you know, we saw him when he came on board. He tried to start giving some visas to international journalists or what have you. But at the end of the day, currently what is going on in Zimbabwe is the reality is that the average Zimbabweans cannot differentiate between Emmerson and Mugabe, because we are seeing the same trend. We are seeing the same trait. We are seeing a more deteriorating economic realities. And while we are seeing the political elite, they are driving more flashing cars, their own story is getting better, but for the average people, there is increase in fuel, taxation, and what have you, you know. And currently it is said, if reports are to go by, that there's a battle to even have 2 square meals. Now that's what we are saying. Then if you come to the area of the rule of law, we are seeing situations where there is a gross abuse of the fundamental human rights of the people. There is no room for peaceful protest. A lot of human rights activists have been arrested, and many of them are still awaiting trials. You know, a lot of people, in fact, some people died in the course of peaceful protests. There is a lot of allegation against the military harm of intimidation and victimization. And a lot of people are asking the same question. What is the difference between a Mugabe and Emmerson?
I'll come back to you on that now.
People cannot reconcile.
I want to pose that question to you.
Okay.
Is there a clear-cut difference between these two personalities? Emmerson Mnagangwa, the crocodile, and late Robert Mugabe, from what is happening right now in Zimbabwe?
The only clear difference is Robert and Emmerson. Different spellings.
Wow. That's interesting.
Emmerson, as earlier said when I was giving my opening remarks, that Emmerson was part of the personalities in Zimbabwe that fought for independence. He's been there since 1960 until they got their independence in 1980. He's been there. The destruction by his own political party, he was also part of it. Records are everywhere. Then visibly came on board in 2014 as the first vice president. He had a lot of issues. They almost dropped him. Thank God for the military intervention that edged out Robert Mugabe. So he came in to complete the tenure, after which he came on board as now the substantive president. Even the elections were rigged. It was rigged. And I saw that coming. It's just like you're going to drum to somebody singing. Somebody's singing, you drum. And you hear them drum, you say, no, it's not like that. You don't start drumming with your own mouth. It should be like this, like this. So all suspecting people think maybe you're able to do it. So it was mouth drumming as a first vice president. So they all felt that he could do it. Now he got that they gave him the sticks. He didn't even know how to handle the sticks. No sound came out. Don't say it's offbeat. No sound came out. So the earlier is removed, the better. Two things I've seen about African leaders. No matter how bad you are as a leader, two things, they'll praise you. One, security. Second, welfare. Just provide security and welfare. They'll be clapping for you for a third term, even a fourth term. So because of the way we are, the kind of blood we have, if you allow me to use that word, they don't care about the citizenry. They have no business. So they see the protest on the street, they don't bother. It's not like somebody misbehaving as a leader. His followers will say, "No, sir, you are doing well." So he's more concerned about people around him clapping for him than what he's seen on the screen or hearing or reading from newspapers. So it's an African challenge. So this Emmerson, I don't want to even mention the surname. The surname even creates a problem. So let's go with Emmerson for his integrity at the moment. So he's not doing anything to bring about restoration. For a country, how many of them? 16.5 million. Ordinary 16.5 billion. You can control.
It's really ordinary because there are millions of people here.
Relatively to that of Nigerian population. 16.5 you can't control. It's out by a state. And the country runs a multi-currency system. They don't have their own currency like that. US dollars, South African rand. You don't have your own currency to boast with. So this man, I don't know, they should change it if they can.
They should change it if they can. I'll come back to you. Now he raised a point. He talked about the currency. They don't even have a stable currency. They rely more on the dollars and, of course, South African rands. Is that part of the problem of Zimbabwe? We talk about the economic reforms.
And let me say, that's part of what they are trying to correct by suspending foreign currency, which has even deepened the crisis. You know, let me just say this. Policies work like this. Policies, before you enforce a policy, you have to look at past records. You know, there are histories you could look at, because nothing, the Bible says nothing is new under the sun. Whatever you are trying to do, somehow, if not exactly the same, a certain country somewhere or a state have done that before. You know, many times when we try to initiate policies, we don't look at the past, the present, and the future. And that is where ESPACT comes in. One of the fundamental problems with the African continent, because we're only talking about Zimbabwe, it cut across board really. There are three fundamental problems. Number one is ESPACT. We don't value the place of ESPACT. What we do a lot of time is look for political loyalists. Not necessarily because that loyalist is an expert in his field. Now, don't get me wrong, he may be an economist, but what is his antecedent? What is his track record? What has he done? What reforms? What is his stake in the international community? We don't put that on the table. You see a situation where a politician tells you, I can't take that person because he's not my real loyalist. That's the reason why I like to give it to the then leadership of, I think it was Obasanjo, good or bad. You know, one thing I loved about what he did was the fact that he went to the international community and picked some good heads. You know, like Frank Wike Jr. and this former agri minister one time, Ade Shina, thank you, Ade Shina, then Gozi Okwejola. You know, now, fine, we are back to the same mess, but when they were in charge, there was a relatively new progression of things. You can't talk about their current agricultural reform without making reference to Ade Shina. Let's forget about what's going on agriculturally. You can't talk about it. He brought the template for it. But a lot of times, what we do is trying to reward loyalists. By so doing, we make errors in policies, because policies are very deep things. If you want to make policies for the economy, you have to look for economic experts, not just by political affiliation, but those that have the credential, that are proving competent and credibility to revamp the economy. Just for example, imagine the mess that we find ourselves in this country.
Hold on.
I'm not going into details.
Watch your language. We are not in a mess. Please, watch your language. Yeah.
We're talking about Africa generally. Yeah. You just let us talk. We are all in this together. But I wasn't going to dabble too much into the Nigeria issue. I only wanted to bring out the statement that Gozi Okwejola made some years back or some months back, that he warned us that a time like this is going to come on board. You know, when he was talking about the need to save and all of that, you know, I only wanted to draw that as a connection to emphasize the place of expertise. You know, we can't rule it out. So a lot of times, we just jump into policies without looking at the historical background, the present realities, and the future realities. And if you look at some of the policies of Zimbabwe, even the currency thing, that is part of the reason why experts are saying that things are deteriorating. Although there is a school of thought that is saying that for there to be a recovering, there has to be a wilderness experience. You know, there's a second thought to that. Okay. But again, let me drive this home. Imagine if a man of 75 years come to you, Winston, in assumption, let me assume you're in charge of this TV station, and says he needs a job with you, he wants to work with you. No matter his credentials, you're going to look at his age and imagine that, what do you have left to give? You know, see, we can't take away the fact that in Africa, most times we have people that should have retired and start enjoying their pension allowances, fighting for position of leadership. This man is 77 years old, to cry out loud. See, age is an issue in leadership, because even medically speaking, at 45, diminishing returns start returning in, what they call dementia or something in the medical field. It starts returning, it starts setting in, your cells start dying, you know, there's no room for replenishment. Research has it that the highest age of productivity for human is 45 years old. You know, we keep on seeing people that are elderly. And I'm also aware that there's another school of thought that say we need their experience. But looking across board, how many of these people experience have helped Africa? All right. Let's go from Zimbabwe to South Africa to Nigeria, what have you. Okay. You know, so I have to begin to rewrite the narrative.
Rewriting the narrative. Now, if you take a look at the clip, you saw the women, political, supporters, so to speak, singing and dancing, "Thank you, Zimbabwe," from Emmerson Mnagangwa, and of course, it promised a drastic change. He talked about wilderness experience. Is that what you think they are going through to really fine-tune the economy to make Zimbabwe better?
A wilderness experience is not needed. It's not every process in life and in living that all of us should go through. It's like reinventing the wheels. If I suffered as a father, that doesn't mean my children should suffer the same way. If I went to the farm in the morning, come back, cook, before I trek like 10 kilometers to school, now I'm expecting my children to go through the same experience, I'll be a bad father. They have been going through the wilderness. Is the wilderness endless? It's not a geographical location. So there is no, all those schools of thought should be closed down. If they are physical or abstract, they don't make sense. They are not real. So it's just a gimmick. To see people, as we also have in Nigeria, if I drop ₦1 million, let's say at Uselu market, the market women, you're going to follow me to Waterhall tomorrow. There will be no market absolute tomorrow. All manners of cultural groups will join. Everybody is hungry. Life expectancy in Zimbabwe for men is 60 maximum. For women, 64. And the president is 70-something. In other words, he has created a bar. Nobody will live up to his age.
No, he never said that. He never said that.
If the life expectancy is 60 for men like him, and he is more than 70, nobody's going to get there.
But I believe that we have some men also that have gone up to his 80 even in Zimbabwe.
Maybe out of maybe God's intervention. There is no food. Do you know it means to protest? May God not allow us protest. It will get to a point, not only the local balance, all die and die. For you to make up your mind, you're going to protest. You have a wife, you have children, that don't worry. If I don't come back, no problem. I'm going to protest for your sake. It takes the other willpower. A right-thinking person, you have eaten, you have enough to live on. You won't go and protest. The best option they now have is to go on a street protest. It's not enough to discuss under the mango tree. It has gone beyond that. For men used to come out, that the best way, let's take this destiny in our hands. Anything they need to do, let them do it. And it's a shame on the leadership of that country if they feel the way I'm ashamed on their behalf. They have all it takes. They have white people there. A reform came up, okay, land by farmers, white farmers, they retrieve the land by way of policy making and push them to a quote landless Zimbabweans. And they are productive. Something similar to how we are in South Africa. The border countries around Zimbabwe, they are not suffering as much. Mozambique, Zambia, Botswana, the suffering there is not much. So why would they now rate as if it's only Zimbabwe that should be a country in Africa that is suffering? They have all the resources, but the willpower to do the right thing is not there. They won't do it, because the more the people suffer, the better for leadership. Just like there's fear crisis in Benin, for instance. Few people will make more money, while a large number will suffer the more. So we have the right conscience to lead. If I were to go back, British people should have given them independence up to now.
Oh, really?
They should have.
Even they're not right for independence.
There's no civilization there now. There's no civilization.
All right. Now, he talked also about the Land Use Act when it was revoked, and the white men practicing agriculture within the country were told to give back the land to the people. Is that another mistake they made?
That's the reason why, Winston, I made a holistic presentation on policies. You know, before you start, that's why I said policies are in phases. There are some policies you don't just make in a hurry. It has to go through systematic processes. You know, we must sometimes learn to respect processes in policy making sometimes. You know, some policies are not meant to be rushed into, okay? It's just like, I was making a case during the Nigeria independence agitation. I said, before Nigeria got independent, the British colonial masters called us to the table and said, fine, we will give you independence, but from our own research findings and observation, you need about 10 years to learn the tools of operation, because what you call democracy or parliamentary system or presidential system is totally strange to the African. We had our own African respected way of governance before these men came. But we said, no, we can't wait. We needed it now, and now. You know, now the point is, some policies have to go through processes. You know, that's the reason why I said that sometimes in governance, we must not be rigid. I think part of the problem Emmerson is making is this rigidity. You know, you have to learn sometimes to make intelligent compromise. You have to learn sometimes to allow policies in phases until you finally get what you want. Like I said earlier on, you see, it's not as if, I don't want to see it as if the Zimbabweans are impatient. You know, there's something that is currently happening across board in Africa. And I always like to talk to leadership and speak to power. See, one day, nemesis will get caught at you. You will not always be there. Look at the uprising. Apart from the fact that is going on in the Western world, but look at what is happening in Africa. People are becoming more aware. Even though you try through oppressive tendency to shut the mouth of the people by arrest, by disobedience to the rule of law, you have to realize that there is already an awakening. It's a world of the internet. People are seeing what is going on in the world. They are becoming more aware that it can work. The workability of governance is not mystical. It's only when it comes to Africa, it looks mystical. What happened in Zimbabwe, for all I care, is just that the tool of oppression changed hands from Mugabe to Emmerson. If you look at it holistically, what is currently going on in Zimbabwe, you need to see the massive arrest. You need to see the massive harassment. You need to see what Amnesty International is saying. You know, the oppression is terrible, and even some international world or bodies that want to come up to help, they are drawing back a little bit. You know, because when the international world noticed a vivid abuse of the fundamental human rights of the people, any investor will have a second thinking to say, how can I invest in this kind of economy where the governance does not respect the fundamental human rights? Look at when IMF wanted to intervene in the situation of Zimbabwe. One of the things they said was, we are watching your government to know if it's a credible government, what our assistance or help. You know, so the international community are watching. It is only the UAR, the United Arab Emirates, that seems to have gone across board and ready to lend a helping hand Currently, they have already started a massive help in the health sector. You know, it's only the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, but quite a number of international bodies, you know, are drawing back despite the open business policy by the current government. You know, so there are a number of issues. You know, good countries don't just emerge. It is policies, respect for the fundamental human rights of the citizens. I think in Africa, we spend time fighting the wrong thing. We spend time reacting. I'm talking about our leadership. They spend time reacting instead of leading. And the goal of leadership is not to be reacting. There is no leadership that will not have critics. But we have a mentality in Africa. It's not a democratic mentality. It's the mentality of you dare not speak against me. It's the crush them mentality. If you talk against me, you're an enemy, which is not supposed to be so. It is a democratic setting. And the beauty of democracy is that you have an opposition.
You have an opposition. Okay, I'll come back to it now. He talked about oppression. There is other case also of massive corruption being detected in the government or governance of Emmerson Mnagangwa. It is also a factor militating against Zimbabwean socio-economic reform.
Corruption in Zimbabwe is heavily rooted. Corruption to me is like a fruit tree. You plug, let's say, a mango tree. What you see all around, mango fruits, oh, this corruption, let's stop this corruption. You pluck one mango, you pluck the nest. That's not the cause of the challenge. The challenge is insincerity. My colleague here mentioned policy. It's not policy. A policy is made and it's not big. What do you do? You have made a lot of promises. You put ball inside the river. You put AC around each community. They just say a thing like that. They don't mean it. We are insincere as Africans. You, even to the extent in Nigeria, if you are talking to somebody, you are going, you say, I'm coming. We are insincere. One policy for a country can drive that country. If you want it documented, they'll document a lot of things. There are lawyers everywhere. They'll document it, but don't obey it. Just write it in case there's a legal suit so that we'll refer to it. But otherwise, let's go this way. So the corruption there, as I've earlier said, Emmerson has been part of it. He is now making him president to be signatory to corruption. Before now, you will be given a check, go and cash this corruption. But now he's the main signatory.
But still, he may have something different to say about this. After all, he's making moves towards the US, making moves also towards the United Arab Emirates, making moves to other countries to make Zimbabwe better.
It doesn't mean it. That's the point I'm making. Is that insincere? It's a common thing around Africa. They will tell you one thing, don't believe them. If you want to maintain a stable blood pressure condition, don't believe any government. They don't mean it. They are going to arrest this, they're going to make this, they don't mean it. What they mean is, if that act will fund their pockets, that's when they are more serious. Okay, there is poverty. There is insecurity in Nigeria, for instance. Don't worry, we have decimated Boko Haram. The next thing, in Borno State, one village, they killed 100 persons.
Okay, fine. We are not here to exaggerate, right? Because
it's an African challenge.
To tackle the insurgents in Nigeria.
It's an African challenge.
Okay.
So it goes around the whole of Africa. They don't mean what they say. I've been following each president. Once you're just making a speech, I'll be listening to you. The people that draft are from the academia. Those that draft their I would just draft a speech and give to the go and read. You already don't know the impulse of anything. To just write a thing, tell them that I'm serious. Tell them, you don't give the instruction, I will write 10 pages. You now come on air, my government will do this. You don't know the meaning of what I have written. So when it comes to implementation of what you have said, you don't know, I didn't say that. Okay, 30,000 minimum wage. It was promised. But now I say, come and negotiate. Negotiate what you have promised. So we don't mean what we are saying. So the corruption we are seeing is out of a lot of insincerity. The root There is no showing his insincerity. What comes out is the corruption.
Wow. So insincerity seems to be at the base of everything.
We are not sincere. We are not sincere.
Now let's take a look at the power situation. Paul like said that give us power. Give an African man power. He knows what to do. He can produce. He can be innovative. Right now, according to what is happening in Zimbabwe, more than 300% increase in electricity tariff. How do you think they'll recover economically with this on the ground?
You see, the problem, beside the increase in electricity tariff, is do you even see the power? What I mean is, how often, for how many hours do you get the power? You know, there's also a complaint about that. You know, it's sad to say. I was listening to one of the power director in one of the countries in Africa, and to date, you know, he was lamenting that the problem with the power sector is underfunding. You see, and that's the reason why. See, we just have to get it right. Permit me to infer. We have to make inferences from what we know to the outside world. You know, I've always said that in Africa we make things very mystical. We make it like, it's not as easy as you are saying it. Let me remind you of what happened in 27, 28 in this state. You know, it was like nothing good could come out. You know, you can't get the road done. You can't do infrastructure. You can't get street lights. But someone came on board, won the case at the tribunal, and before we knew it, for the first time, we started seeing some things. And when the person wanted to come on board again, people said, do the work. You know, something is working. Now, why am I making that inferences? I'm trying to say that change is not as difficult as we make it seem in Africa. 2 years is enough for the average Zimbabweans to see. I'm not saying that there will be something miraculous, that automatically there will be wealth everywhere. But it's enough for people to observe the political will, like my co-discussant is saying, the political will to see that, yes, Emmerson have the political will. Fine, we are still suffering, but we can see the direction. We can see where this government is headed for. We saw a governor that went to the street, used hammer, hit the ground, try to see the quality. You see, it's beyond sitting in the comfort of your office, enjoying the AC and your allowances, your amazing security votes, and saying that it's not as easy as you people say. Keep talking there. You see, so we have to look at that. Then in Africa, another thing we have seen relatively over the years is that individuals are stronger and more powerful than institutions and systems, which cannot build any nations. You know, and that's the emphasis that my co-discussant have been saying. When you make policies, you build institutions that you are stronger than. You know, there's an average psychology of an average African leader. The laws are made for the commoners, not for them. That's the average psychology. And that is exactly what we see in actual reality. On paper, you see that we all obey the rule of law and whatever. But in reality, that's not what we see. So we have individuals that are more powerful than the so-called institutions and systems that we have. And mind you, some of these institutions that we built and these systems are very credible in terms of international standard. The way there is no political will, they become weakened. Then again, you look at the power sector. You cannot revamp an economy when there is no consistent light. And the root of economic revival is power. It is power that we encourage SMSE, small-scale businesses. Yeah. It's power. Now just imagine, between 2000 and the present date, about 8 to 9 major companies left this country for Ghana and South Africa. Major companies, Dunlop and what have you, major companies left. What was the reason? Power.
And now in Zimbabwe, they have 300% increase in tariff.
It's not enough to go and say we have opened the door for international investors, because that's one of the things Emmerson is saying everywhere, you know, trying to whip up sentiment. But the truth is, they are watching you in terms of your obedience to the rule of law and in terms of your power sector. Because every investor or every intending investor is a businessman. So he's going to calculate his gain, his chances of gain. He's not just going to come and no investor wants to lose his money. Right. You know, so we can get it right if we are able to redefine our leadership. Everything John Maxwell say rises and falls on leadership. What is staring at us in Africa is the massive failure of leadership, because instead of leading a nation, we lead our parties.
All right. Leading a nation, we lead our parties. Well, that's going to be your last line on this discourse because our time is up. If you really want to summarize, can Zimbabwe really get out of this situation? Let me use the word messy situation right now.
It is.
Because they're like, they just can't afford it. They just can't live according to, I want to put it to what they have, living below poverty level, going down the canal, so to speak, of economic debacle. How can they get out of this?
They can get out if the president is still very sincere. I'm still hammering on sincerity, because what I've seen over the years, somebody gets into an office that he contested for, then now tells you, I have not settled down. When do you start settling down? You guys were buying a form.
2 years.
That's when you should have known that this office I'm entering into, and when I get there, I'll do this. You say, no, I've not done 4 years. 4 years is not written anywhere. We just imagine it and okay, let it be constitutional. You can make things work in 1 month. Just in Nigeria, if you allow me to talk about Nigeria in less than 20 seconds. I heard today that they've added about 3,000 megawatts of power to the national grid. Should you announce it? If I have light at home, what I know? I came in just now, I heard your generator working. You don't have to tell us that you have added. We know. Just like a shepherd and the sheep is controlling. It's not the shepherd that gives birth to sheep. Sheep will give birth to themselves. Is it not? Yeah. All right, good. You are leading us. So let the citizens come on air that, do you know, for the past 24 hours, there has not been power outage. Let us say it. You allow us say it, that you have added this, you have added that. We have not seen anything. Except if it's a coven, they will take us to one day and see it.
Nobody take it to a coven. Nobody will take it to a coven.
I've not seen anything.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Well, you've heard them. They're drawing analogy from various countries in Africa, and the center of it all is what is happening in Zimbabwe. If you just joined us, not to worry, program is over, but go to our social media handle, go to our YouTube channel, get to see all current affairs program, health programs, news, report, you just name it. Just log on to YouTube/ITV Radio NG. Go to that place, you get to see the videos, you listen, you can comment on it if you really want to. You can have a chat with us on our Twitter handle at ITV Radio NG, or on my own personal Twitter handle at Marshall Wilson. On GoTV, we are on channel 1007, yes, channel 107 on Star Times, channel 130, terrestrial, channel 22. On the net, live coverage, you just name it, we are there. So you don't have any excuse to give us a part of our news, current affairs program, musical programs, you just name it. Once more, gentlemen, I appreciate your on-point analysis.
Thank
but
you.
whatever they say here is entirely their own opinion. It has nothing to do with ITV. Bye for now.